All right, so it's time to start doing some digging in. Actually, I already started, but let's get started with the starting. All right, guys, so really what I'm talking about is I've already started trying to pull off the covering. And the reason that I did that because I've never done it before. I've seen instructions, and so let me tell you how that goes. All right, so what you're seeing here is me just trying things out. I've already removed the strut over here. I left in the hardware bolts here and just started pulling off the covering just on a very superficial basic level. Really, the principle is that you take a heat source like a hair dryer or a heat gun and you warm up the film covering, and then you're able to lightly pull it off. And it totally works. However, I'm using a hair dryer, so I save my fingers. Heat guns get really hot, and even this little tiny cheap, like $10 or $15 hair dryer, when I worked on the P47 and took off the vinyl covering on that was from Hangar 9, and even that, my fingers got really quite warm. So may as well do this now while the weather is still relatively cool, because it's going to heat up the basement a little bit, I can tell you that right now. But I've got to try to remove some hardware, including these servos, and I've got to try to remove the control surfaces. They're held on with pin hinges. Let's see, show you these ones. Yeah. So if I can bend these little pins, turn, there we go, bend those back, I should be able to push them back out, and then the whole thing can just pop right off. Okay, so let's get into that. So that's one wing down. We got one wing to go. All right, so this is what it looks like all stripped down. There are some trouble spots. Let's see, where was it? This one. So there are some splitting ribs where the wing tubes are. So that's pretty easily repairable. Some loose cap strips here and there. Just need to go through it. And entirely missing one cap strip right there. Not sure what that happened for. Flaps for the most part are fine. There's a little bit of splitting at one of the roots that I had to quick tack together. Yeah, this one's kind of, it looks like it got ripped out at some point.
there's a whole bunch of epoxy all over the inside of it, and that's why a lot of this part didn't come out, because it's like it was still covered and they just poured epoxy on the inside. Great. It's not a huge deal. We're going to sand that back, and that'll be just fine. The other thing we'll also notice on the ailerons is, so there's all of these, and then clearly something happened here, and this is where the control horn is, so I'm not sure why those are there. But then you go over to the other one. I think they forgot to put the cap strips back on this one when they reassembled it. So we're gonna have to do something about that. So yeah, looking at this, I mean, we've got some good bones here, but there's just some finishing things, like looking down this part, you can see that bevel here is not exactly perfect on that aileron, and yeah, I'm not sure why that's flat either. For an aileron, I would think that'd be rounded or beveled. So we may have to pick these hinges out and redo them. That was the other thing. One of these, I could not, there it is. I could not get this pin out. Could not. Now they are loose. Like, all of these are loose. But they clearly did the right thing and put like a dowel through the hinge down in there. I mean, it's not coming out unless something breaks, but at the same time I'm sitting going, really? Why? With all the epoxy you put right there, you couldn't put any glue in your hinge? A little strange to me. Not the way I would build. But the vast majority of the covering is off, and some of this little stuff I can pick off. That's not a big deal. It'll come off when I sand for sure. But I'm liking what I'm seeing. I'm liking it a lot. All of these aileron bays are going to go. I'm going to mount them well on the bottom, but I'm going to mount them flush. I'm going to install a plate, and then another plate will be fitted where the aileron servo horn will protrude through. Be just essentially like any other airplane, rather than this mounting it perpendicular like that. And yeah, I'm not going to mess with that. That's that. And not to mention, I had to cut into the wing in order to get access to that. And if anything ever goes wrong, I don't want to have to deal with that in the future. All right. Well, that is going to do it for today. I'm sweaty. It's a lot of hair drying without any dry hair. So I'm going to set these aside, and I think I'm going to start doing repairs on the wing. And then I'm going to, probably from there, I'm going to work on the aileron and servo bays. Aileron and flap servo bays, and from there we'll be able to move on to covering. A lot of this stuff is going to be rinse and repeat, just because that's the nature of all of this. As I come up with problems, I'll certainly document them, and I'll show you little bits of progress here and there. I don't mean to sound like, oh well, this doesn't matter, but you don't need to see the same thing over and over again. I don't want to watch that on YouTube, and neither do you. So, with that said, have a wonderful time building your great flying work of art.